Okay. Hopefully we're recording right now. I want to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. My name is Aaron Gabriel. I work with Cornell Cooperative Extension in Albany County and cover 6 counties in the Hudson Valley. And with me tonight is Christian Maltsaki. Christian, I'll let you introduce yourself. You want to unmute?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our program tonight. I'm Christian Maltsaki. I'm down in Ulster County, and then I cover small grains, Ulster County South. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
And with us tonight also is Paul Cotterell from New York State Department of Ag and Markets. He's a food safety inspector, and he's with us tonight to answer questions when we get to that segment. So just quickly, you should be able to either raise your hand or say yes or no. If you click on your chat box, there'll be some selections there. How many people are familiar with Cornell Cooperative Extension? I'm just curious if how new we are to everybody. You can just raise your hand yes if you're familiar with us. I see a couple. Yeah. So basically, Cornell University is what's called the land grant university in New York, and they do a lot of research and education. And Cornell Cooperative Extension is essentially the outreach arm of the university. So we bring that education and research out to the community. So that's what we're all about. That's to remind me to record. So our agenda tonight is, I'm just going to give you a couple questions to answer, just to kind of describe who's attending tonight. We'll talk a little bit about, what is the local grain economy. We will do our tours of the 2 bakeries, and then Christian is going to talk briefly about the food processing license, and then we'll have some more discussion after that and a couple questions to end. So let me, at this point, launch these polling questions. So does everybody see those questions? Christian, can you see the polling questions?
No, they didn't come up for me.
Share results of relaunch.
We only see the agenda.
Okay, how about now?
Now they're there.
Okay. So there's just 3 questions there if you want to just take.
They're gone again.
You want to take a couple seconds to answer those? Still a couple more answers coming in. We have a good representation of bakers, and we have 5 bakers and 3 farmers, so that's very good. And I'm going to end the polling here. Okay, so just so you can see who's here, we have 3 farmers, 6 bakers, folks from Cornell Cooperative Extension, people that are just interested. And people that are using local grains, people that are interested in using more. That's good. All right. So I can get to my next slide here. So the local grain economy, I kind of wrote up this definition. It's not an official definition. A community of farmers, millers, and processors, distributors, bakers, maltsters, chefs, livestock owners, and others who eat and use grains. They communicate and interact together to provide and consume local grains, facilitating each other's success and good health. So that's, when I think of the local grain economy, that's what I'm thinking. And I guess I'd like to get any comments from you folks to see if, you know, if you can add to that, or if you think it's pretty good or needs a little work. I see Karen has her hand raised. Karen, do you want to say something? Unmute and. Karen, do you want to unmute and say anything? Karen Mort? How about Dan? I see you have your hand raised. Maybe you're raising your hands from the previous question at the beginning. Okay, if there's no comments or questions, we'll go on to our next slide. So I was in Bennington and passed by this Isabella's Eatery. And over on the left, you can see it's sustainable food and sensational flavor. And as we, you know, have good intentions and try to live our values of, you know, of a community, doesn't always ensure economic vitality. So it takes a lot of thought to make a business go and to make a community work. Some of you probably know Don Lewis from Wild Hive Mill in the lower Hudson Valley. I had a conversation with him, and he has a lot of experience in the local grain economy. And so these are some of the points he made, you know, to, well, I guess first, you know, why are we interested in the local grain economy? And in my mind, it's a healthy economy, healthy people, and a healthy community. And I personally, I love whole grains. The other day I took some field corn and made cornmeal out of it and added some whole wheat flour that I ground in the kitchen and made some cornbread, and it was really good. A lot better than that really sweet stuff you get at a restaurant. So talking with Don Lewis, these are some of the points he made. It really takes enthusiasm, open-mindedness, and determination to really make something new, like using local grains, to make it successful. He stressed using quality grain. It's, you know, we want to use local, but it's got to be good quality, and getting it processed properly, proper baking, and it takes a team. So we're talking about a community of people, and it's teamwork within your business and with the people in the community supplying the grains. And when you produce a product, don't rush it to market. You have to educate your customers. Probably take a couple top shelf or I guess high-priced items, and start with just a couple things and introduce those to your customers, and then be sure to have a stable local supply. So does anyone have any experience, you know, selling products of made from local grains? And How has some of this worked for you folks? Peggy, if I can get you to mute your microphone if you're not going to talk. Thank you. Dan, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I would just say that we've started really recently using local green. It's certified organic from a farmer who's right down the street from us. It was the whole reason that we got a stone mill in the first place, because it kind of made sense. Even though we have Champlain Valley Milling down the street in the other direction, it was good to support a local farmer. And like I said, we just started using local whole grains, especially because we don't have a sifter. So what we've done is we've educated our customers a lot, especially at farmers markets. And we also, they helped us buy the mill because we did a community supported, a crowdfunded loan through Kiva to actually help buy our mill. So we kind of brought them along on the whole process, and they kind of knew about what we're going to do. And then, so what we've been doing is, 10, 20, 30, 40% kind of increasing the amount of whole grains milled into, let's say, a sourdough bread, which is our probably top selling bread. But then also trying to increase even whole grains in like a focaccia, which might be more of a white flour type of product. And then one simple tip, if you want to include more whole grains in anything, is to use it in cookies, because people just love cookies. And the fact that they're eating like a whole grain rye cookie just takes away any guilt from the butter, sugar, chocolate chips, pecans, bourbon, whatever. So that's a great, and it's really easy because cookies don't need to rise. They're just, you mix them up, and the fact that there's whole grains, freshly milled, is just a great selling point.
That's a good point. In my house, we have what we call Daddy's Healthy Cookies. Yeah, a little bit of whole grain in there. Does anyone else want to make a comment? Okay. So next we're going to do the video tour of Philmont Bakery, and I need to stop sharing my screen. And is Coonrad on? I'm not sure if Coonrad is on this meeting yet. If not, I'm going to have to send him a text and give him a little nudge. Okay, I'm going to start the video. Okay, here we go.
Philmont is in the heart of Columbia County, where Conrad Vandermeer bakes at the Philmont Community Bakery. This bakery is a good example of the local grain economy because Conrad grinds some of his own flour from grain grown down the road in Highlandville, grown by Hawthorne Valley Farm. The Philmont Cooperative sells an array of fresh and prepared foods as well as goods from local farms and businesses in the area. Conrad operates under the 20C license of the co-op. He sells his bread at the co-op and at 4 farmers markets, at a couple of stores, and at a couple of the other co-ops. The farmers markets provide the best opportunity for Conrad to educate his customers about his spelt and rye breads, which are more easily digested by people who are sensitive to gluten. Conrad focuses his marketing on gluten-sensitive customers and people that simply like good bread. Gluten is a protein found in the endosperm of wheat, rye, and barley. Spelt is closely related to wheat, but its gluten can be more digestible. Rye gluten is different than wheat gluten. Customers tell Conrad that they can digest his bread better than typical wheat bread. Using fresh flour is the most important part of baking for Conrad. Enzymes are more active in fresh flour. Whole grain flours also have more enzymes because it includes the germ and bran layers. Malt barley extract is also used to increase enzyme activity. Sourdough starter is made fresh for every batch. The starter, and a longer rising time, helps break down the gluten more. Producing grains for local bakers, maltsters, and chefs is an opportunity for farmers. These artisans often want specific varieties of grains. When you order a 50-pound bag of flour from a distributor, usually it has blends of many unknown varieties. Artisans are discovering the unique qualities and different varieties of all of the small grains. Grains like spelt, einkorn, emmer, and oats need dehulling. This is another opportunity for farmers to value add their product by processing it. When we think of whole grain flour, probably our first thought is high protein flour for bread. However, soft white wheat suited for pastries can also be stone ground for products other than breads.
Would you explain again what you have on the rack here?
Right. So the top side here is the white spelt from sifted spelt flour. This is the whole spelt. This is honey oat, also from sifted spelt flour. Here. And then there's whole spelt raisin. And then I got rye in the other.
Conrad shares pantry space with other co-op members. Grains and flours are stored in tightly sealed barrels and containers. This, and using product quickly, prevents pests from becoming a problem. Conrad grinds locally grown rye and spelt 3 to 4 times a week as he needs it. About 300 pounds weekly. He also orders sifted flours each month that comes from a New York mill.
So this is the storage for all the producers. So I got my stuff on this side, and then the mill is a light.
This is a horizontal stone mill. You can see the bottom stone, which is stationary. The top stone inside the housing spins. Sifters can be added to separate different particles sizes of flour and bran. Stone mills are suited for whole grain flours.
So I take the cover off so nothing falls in there. Turn the power on. This will come on. Going in the bin. And make sure that the skirt fits. Minimize the dust. Here's where I store the grain. And this is the spelt. So the grains that I'm going to grind, I store them in these bins here. And I got my backer. My stump stool. So this is about 25, 30 pounds in here. So turn the mill on. So this is stable on the top. Starts spinning right now. And this will, I have a switch here. It makes 50 RPM. And now I'm turning on the feeder. This is an auger that pushes the grain. And I can have it pretty much set, but I can adjust the speed. This takes about 20 minutes or so to grind. Right, see grinding slowly, and that's about it.
There we go. Okay. I don't see Conrad registered, but does anyone have any questions there? That was a New American Mill. It was about a 28-inch diameter. He's got a particular customer base that he's serving, and he has quite a bit of experience baking. He's been baking for quite a while. I can't tell you anything about baking, but.
And I will add that he did move here from, is it Austria, Aaron?
I believe so.
And so he does he said he sticks with the traditional style of European bakery that he owned over there. And one of the big differences that he's seen in the contrast between Europe and America is that, here there's more pre-packed bread that goes out to stores and everything, where in Europe it's still very much bread's baked on a daily basis and people pick it up that day, and it's pretty much just disposed of or gone by the end of the day, and they start that process all over again the next morning.
So he has a pretty simple operation, especially taking advantage of the Philmont Cooperative. So he operates under their 20C license and has space there and got almost a ready-made customer base. He's expanded it. But anyway, so there's no questions. We'll move on to the next video. Let's see. I have to be sure I'm. You're gonna have to excuse me for just a minute. Here we go. Okay, can you see that?
Hawthorne Valley?
I want to be sure everyone can see that.
Aaron, it's just showing your page, your videos.
Okay. I got to figure out how to share this properly. How about now?
Still the video page.
Okay. Share. Let's try this again.
There you go.
Okay.
County, where Conrad Vandermeer bakes at the Philmont Community Bakery. This bakery is a good
Not the right one. Sorry about that, folks. Let me figure this out here. Okay, can you see that? Can you see
Yep,
the?
looks good.
Okay.
Hawthorne Valley Bakery is located at Hawthorne Valley's 900-acre biodynamic farm and Waldorf School, located in Ghent, New York, in the heart of Columbia County. Foods, and in particular grains, are threads that can weave a community together. Growing and preparing food encompasses the responsibility of providing nutrition as well as making foods that we enjoy and that bring us together. At Hawthorne Valley Farm and School, this community is created by growing crops and then making and consuming their own foods. Children and youth have the opportunity to learn this process. Spelt, rye, and barley are the primary grain crops grown, some for the bakery and some for the livestock. Spelt has the hulls still attached to the seed after it is harvested with the combine. De-hulling provides farmers a way to value add this grain. Since Hawthorne Valley does not currently have de-hulling machinery, they buy de-hulled spelt for the bakery. Rye does not need de-hulling, so rye is only purchased when their supply is depleted. Wheat berries are also purchased. A meadow mill stone mill is used for making whole grain flours from spelt, rye, and wheat. The stones are sharpened once each year. Sifted flours are also purchased for baked goods that need flours without bran or germ. Artisan bakers often prefer specific varieties of wheat and other grains. This provides an opportunity for local farmers to custom grow grains for customers. Tastes and buying habits have been changing rapidly. It is hard to keep up, but this provides an opportunity for farmers as well as bakers, brewers, and chefs. The ability for farmers to store grains through 12 months is important to adequately supply end users without interruption. Properly storing grain requires learning new management skills of sanitation, moving grains, aerating bins, and monitoring for moisture, temperature, and pests.
We have our barrel here, which is empty. And we have this lovely Hawthorne Valley t-shirt, which is filter. And of course, this is just going to make it so I don't get flour everywhere. Okay, so we have 150 pounds of rye berries there. Put a fan on, it is. And it's gonna get loud.
Stone mills are suited for making whole grain flours. Sifters can be added to stone mills to separate out large particles of ground kernels and bran. A sifter could also separate out large pieces of hulls that are not finely ground. However, too much ground hulls will ruin flour quality. passes through several sets of rollers. Each set removes a thin layer of grain, thereby separating the germ, bran, and endosperm. Sifters capture each component and the various flour particle sizes. When wheat is tempered, by bringing it up to 16% moisture, the seed components separate more easily. Grains and flours are kept in sealed pails and containers. This, along with using product quickly, prevents any pests from building up.
All right, here we are in the mill room. We just ground some rye flour. We have our wheat flour over here, our high gluten flour. We do mix some of the flours for certain breads. Over here we have what's known as mixing station, where we're going to mix our doughs. So we have some of this that's ready for tomorrow. This is it's a pre-ferment for our rye spelt sourdough, and this actually gets made in 3 different stages for the dough itself. And right now there's a small amount of starter and rye flour in this bowl, and now I'm just going to actually add this flour to it. And then that's going to sit overnight, and 4 o'clock tomorrow morning we're going to add our spelt flour, some seeds, and salt. And then right when this dough is mixed, we're going to shape it on the table over there. And then it will go into our proof box where it rises. And then it will go into the oven. Now our other rye sourdough, our 100% sourdough rye, would be made, the dough would be mixed in here in one shot with rye starter, rye flour, and salt. It would give a nice long mix. And then it would actually be both fermented in the cooler overnight. That's the same thing with our spelt 100% spelt sourdough. Down and cover it.
The baking quality of flour is affected differently each year by grain variety and weather. Large mills can blend many different flours to maintain a consistent product. Local millers and bakers need to know the baking qualities of local grain crop and adapt to it.
Here's one of the flours there. Cover that up overnight. This is our dough mixer. Right now there's some pre-ferment for baguette dough that's going to be made at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. And that's going to be mixed warm, shaped on the table. This is our proof box. Right now it's on recorder mode. And I do have our white sourdough starter in here. It's been fed today. And we don't want it to get too warm, so we let it sit out for a while. Put it in here at 50 degrees. 100% block. This is our big would take the loaves of sourdough and take them off of these boards. Shaped on these boards, and we would put them on here, store them all.
So it's on that baking sheet.
What's that?
It's on the baking. Oh, you're pulling the sheet back out. Oh, there you go.
And one more fun thing to show you. Our walk-in, we have all the doughs that were made today that are going to be shaped tomorrow morning and baked.
Educating customers and thoughtfully introducing new products, they come to appreciate locally grown whole grains. Baked goods are sold at the On-Farm store as well as at New York City farmers markets and to a couple of wholesale customers. There is a wide range of customer preferences. Educating them is important. For example, helping them know that house-milled wheat bread is from flour that they milled fresh at the bakery.
Okay. Just one comment. The oven there was not a jet oven, but a deck oven. So we didn't quite get that caption fixed. But so, any questions? Now, Delcy, are you here on your? I see someone in the Galaxy S8 phone. Is that you? Okay. So Delcia, the baker at Hawthorne Valley, is with us, and if you have any questions, this would be a good time to bring them up.
Where did that oven come from?
But you need to unmute Delcia.
Okay, that oven was purchased when the store was actually built, the new store there. I don't remember where exactly it was coming from, but it was built in that bakery. Thinking that it came from France, but it was way back in my younger days when I remember that oven coming in. Definitely a European. A lot of our equipment is European.
Gotcha.
Delcia, when I was visiting, I noticed a kind of a stone masonry oven outside. You folks use that still?
We don't in the bakery. They actually use that with the kids for some of their, they do pizzas in there on the stone oven outside. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? We have a few bakers in the audience, so if you have any experience you want to add, we're glad to hear it. Okay, then the next we're going to have Christian just give us a quick review of the food processing license for New York State, the 20C license.
Aaron,
So-
before we go to that, we've got some questions in the chat box that came up.
Okay, thank you. You want to read those off?
Sure, we've got one from Zach. I'm obviously very new to the industry, but would love to source the pastry and all-purpose for our pies, flours more locally. Are there larger mills in New York that could supply 5 to 1,000 pounds a week?
Yeah.
We get a lot of our flours from Champlain Valley. That's in New York State. A lot of the grain there doesn't come from New York State, though. A lot of it's coming from Canada.
So in the beginning of the chat box, I listed contact information for myself and Christian, and also a link to our blog. And in that link, there's a list of New York mills. So there's a couple of very large mills in New York, one in Albany. They're taking a lot of, well, mostly like 99% flour from outside the state because they produce about 2 million pounds a day and we can't supply them, but they do take local grain. Then there's Star of the West Mill, also out in Western New York by Rochester. It's just conventional grains. It's not organic, but they take a lot of New York grain, Pennsylvania grain, Ohio, and Ontario grain. And then there's some other mills doing organic flours. Wild Hive, and also the one out by Ithaca.
Farmer ground flour.
Farmer ground, yeah.
And then our second question is from Leo, and he would like to know how you decide to use 100% rye versus rye mix with other flours.
So it's different types of bread for us. With the 100% rye sourdough, for example. It's a very dense loaf. It's gonna fill you up, whereas our Jewish rye, for example, is about 1/3 rye and 2/3 white flour. It's gonna give a more sandwich loaf that a lot of people are looking for, a lot of our customers are looking for.
All right, and Karen would like to know where you learned to bake so many specialty products.
Well, I started out in my teenage years back in Hawthorne Valley in the old store, in the old bakery, which was in the basement. I was there for a few years and I went on to Our Daily Bread, which does a lot of the same type of European loaves. And then I actually got into more of the pastry realm of things when I started my own line. And then now I'm back at Hawthorne Valley, so I've kind of relearned some things.
All right, our next one is, do you use different starters or just rye sourdoughs? Or just a rye starter?
So for the only one that we're using the rye starter for is our 100% rye sourdough and our Black Forest rye. And then we have our white sourdough starter, which is more of like a San Francisco style loaf, but that one actually is used for most of our breads, our San Francisco, our house milled wheat, our flax sunflower. And then with our rye spelt, it's actually just a very small amount of the old dough before the spelt flour and the seeds are added. And then we just save that and use it once a week. We store it in our fridge, and that's why it's that 3-part process that you saw in the video. So it's building up the dough throughout the course of the day, the evening.
And our next question, Aaron, did you say you had posted a list of mills, or is there one available somewhere?
It's posted on our blog, and in the chat box at the beginning of the chat box, the link is listed. So it's commercial mills that are selling flour. So as you can see, we have bakers that have their own mills, not necessarily selling flour. And I don't know if any of them would want to do any custom milling on a small scale, but you'd have to approach them on that.
I'm not seeing it in the chat box. Could you repost that, or am I looking in the wrong spot?
It's at the very beginning. It's still, I see it in my chat box, but I can post it again. I'll post it right now.
Our next question is, what are the worst pain points in the local grain economy ecosystem and obstacles to grow capacity?
Who would like to answer that?
I don't know, that one's more for a farmer than a baker, but I know that we have capacity issues on the farm. Right now, we're just starting to get our farms rye this week, and it's been a while without it. So I guess they're just not growing enough for us. Also, we have pest issues on the farm once in a while. I'm sure the weather takes a factor, but yeah, I almost wish I had a farmer next to me to answer that question.
My perspective is that we really do have just a handful of small scale mills, to do kind of the local organic or the specialty type flours. So I think, but some of the mills we have, they do have more capacity. And I think educating the public, if people were, I think people are screaming a little bit for some of these really good breads, local breads, but if they screamed louder, I think, the void would be filled.
And as Aaron and I talk to more people and more farmers that are even considering or would like to grow grains to sell to regional bakeries and keep it local, there also seems to be issues with the supply chain too, as far as storage, just transportation, even, some of the mills, once it's milled, where they're going to hold it or if someone's going to take it. So yeah, there's some chinks there in that chain.
Yeah. So storage is an issue for farmers. So this program today is part of a grant. We have a 2-year grant to do farm storage management education, especially small scale growers. Storage can be quite an investment. The other thing I'll mention is that, so for this meeting, I went to Ag and Markets and Department of Health and got a list of all the bakers in New York that were inspected by the state. And so for Eastern New York, I sifted out a list of 462 bakers, took out, Dunkin' Donuts and places like that. And I sent them all a postcard for this meeting to advertise this meeting. And so, we have a pretty good showing tonight, but it's a small percentage of that 462 bakers in Eastern New York. And I think, educating them, and I think, I read a book once about sales. It takes like 8 contacts, to make a sale. And so I think as we just talk about it and let people know what's going on, eventually people, they'll see that things are happening and hopefully their interest will be piqued and they'll try to take a bite.
Aaron, I would just say that at our farmers market, we have other bakers that are at the market in one of our most successful markets, and they're not using organic flour. They're not looking to get locally milled flour. They're not looking to buy local grain. So I agree with you that we do need to talk more about it and educate more about it. But as far as your postcard, I could see why some people might not, be interested in that because they're either just used to buying maybe King Arthur flower, which is a great flower, but they're just used to that, and they're used to that kind of supply chain and having that stability and that consistency. Where as far as the pain points, it can be tougher to start to use local greens. What if there's supply issues and those kind of things. So I mean that could be why there's not more people kind of on this call right now. Just one thought.
Right. It's a hurdle, and that's one of the things that Don Lewis emphasized was you can't jump into it whole hog. You have to really do it thoughtfully and with just a couple products and slowly, and you gotta be careful so that you don't hurt your business making a big transition.
We had a question from someone who's joining us from Virginia. They'd like to know if Cornell supports small local grain farms through grain testing or breeding. Actually, we do both. We have a plant breeding program. Dr. Mark Sorrells is in charge of the plant breeding and genetics lab. And he's recently created actually a brand it's a malting barley, Aaron, right?
Yeah.
That he's getting ready to release. Yeah. That was here and developed in New York. It was fast tracked. He did it in just right around 3 years. It grew here in our summers, and then they shipped that to New Zealand, and it grew down there in our winter, their summer, and then they would ship it back up here. And I believe he's also working on wheat varieties as well. And we also have research plots throughout the state where we trial different grain varieties from across the country as well as from overseas to see what does well here in New York. And we have those plots broken up into different parts of the state. Where Aaron and I are at over here in Eastern New York, especially as you go farther down south towards the city, what does well for us doesn't necessarily do great in Central or Western New York, and vice versa. So it is important for us to gain that research information and data so that we can help local farmers, mills, brewers, maltsters and everything with what the recommended varieties are so they're not wasting their money planting grains that just aren't going to work here. And hopefully I know Mark started testing that barley this year out in they just did the Ithaca area, Aaron, when they go farther into central New York.
Actually, Francis DeMoy out in Western New York grew the seed that will be sold in 2021.
Okay. Yeah, and I think they're gonna try to get it in over here in Aaron and I's region to see how it does there. And then they were part of a grain development, something called Lightning out of Oregon. And it's a switch hitter. It's a winter or spring, whatever you want it to be. So they trialed some of that this year, and they're gonna expand in the state where it goes in 2021.
Any other questions in the chat box, or anyone have anything they want to say before we move on? Okay, with that, I think you can share your screen, Christian, and
all right, let me give this a try. Okay, everyone, I get the most exciting part of all, rules and regulations. Yay. So hold on to your seat. So I'm going to cover just very briefly the 20C license. Luckily, we have Paul on here from Ag and Markets to be able to answer your questions. But for those of you that may run a restaurant or who have been in the restaurant business, I think you'll see how this very closely aligns to when you get that visit from the health inspector and what they're looking for. So can everybody see this?
yep.
All good? All right. So let me move. I can't see my own screen here. Hold on. All right, so yeah, the 20C food processing license, a brief summary. So this is foods that are regulated and require a Article 20C food processing license in New York. You'll see here there is quite an extensive list of them, and it applies to essentially anything that's altered by value-added processing, including but not limited to. So remember, this isn't an all-inclusive list here. That's something that Ag and Markets would be able to run through with you. And I believe also, Aaron, you did the links to the Ag and Market handouts and documents are in the chat box with the other ones you put up?
Yes.
Okay, so the 20C license process is that you receive the license, you have it reviewed, and then you're going to go into the Good Manufacturing Practices inspection, which I have the GMPs on the next slide. So once you're inspected and you pass these points, you would have the license issued, which then means that you could sell. If you don't have this license yet, if you're just, received it or you're under the review period of it and haven't been inspected yet, any food that's found in the market from the unapproved source is subject to seizure. So the license is renewed every 2 years. I have the cost as well as some information at the end here. And facility inspection frequency is based on product risk. Again, Paul is on here, so if you have problems or questions about what product risk is and how they determine that, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer those for you. So those GMPs that you reviewed on, the guidelines follow a few basic principles. And this is broken down. Ag and Markets does a good job of breaking this down, but it's also quite an extensive list. So I just wanted to hit on the main things, and then you could go back and take a look at their list for you. So it's instructions and procedures must be written in clear and unambiguous language. Records produced during the manufacturing food process, temperature controls, cleaning, sanitation, all of that stuff must be maintained. So again, there's that link if you have a restaurant or familiar with a restaurant business, how they look for that. And then the categories are personal, building and grounds, sanitary operations, sanitary facilities and controls, equipment and utensils, processes and controls, and warehousing, storage, and distribution. So the legality, so be sure to check with your local jurisdiction concerning zoning regulations. That's determined, that's different everywhere. So that is certainly something you want to look forward or to look into to make sure that you can move forward with your plans. Now, New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets Division of Food Safety and Inspection does the 20C license. It is $400 for the 2 years. And remember, it is renewed every 2 years. Here is their contact information, which is also shared in the chat box and those links. And now if you have any in-depth questions, Paul is here to answer all your needs. Nobody? Come on, Paul called in special for us. We got to get at least one question for him.
Hi, Paul. I thought the license going forward, at least from when we had our last inspection, the license goes by the number of staff now, the amount of money being charged. Because I know 2 years ago we did pay the $400, but our inspector told us it's going to change. The New York State has a different fee now depending on how many staff you have. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes. The license, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. The license requirement now has changed somewhat. We have, it is now for an establishment that has, a new establishment that has less than 10 persons, the license is free for the first 2 years. Subsequent, if you have an establishment that still remains less than 10 person, then the license for 2 years is $175. Over 10 persons, it's $400 every 2 years.
Thank you.
Paul, we had a question in the chat box. What is the inspection frequency generally for milling facilities?
If it's a food processing establishment, the frequency, depending on the for milling. For milling, it's it's once every year. If there's a failure of the inspection, so that we do an inspection and find a critical deficiency. A critical deficiency results in a failure. Now that would generate a reinspection, and we will come back within 30 to 60 days to do a follow-up inspection.
And then I have another.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have another question. Is just milling considered processing? Like if a farm were to do some small batch milking at its farm store, does that need a license?
Repeat the question again. I'm sorry. I didn't hear it quite well. Can you repeat the question?
Is just milling considered processing? Like if a farm were to do some small batch milking at its farm store, does that need a, mock mill? The small batch milling with a small mock mill, does that need a license?
Yes, that would need a license because that would consider food processing.
I'll just add, when you go onto the website and look at all the different categories of food safety, they've kind of forgotten about milling grains. It's not really, they don't talk about it because so few people actually do it. But it is food processing, and so it does come under, the food processing license.
Yes.
So I have a question. So if I'm a farmer and I buy myself a little mill and I set it up in my barn, I make kind of a clean room for milling and everything, but I don't have a bathroom facility in my barn, but I have one in my house that's not too far away. How is that? Is that okay?
Yes.
How is that addressed?
That is okay for any food processing facilities. The department doesn't require you to have a bathroom on site. What the department requires, but if you have a bathroom on site, it's required that you meet certain requirements, that you have a hand wash sink there, and to wash your hands after utilizing the room. If you don't have a bathroom on site, it doesn't hinder you from getting a license. What you need on site, being that you're going to be doing food processing, is at least a 3-bay sink and a hand wash sink, or a 3-bay sink and one of the sinks could be designated as a hand wash sink for your establishment.
Okay, and that would have to be in the barn.
And that would have to be in the barn, for the food processing area, because you would need that to sanitize your equipment.
Okay. You have any other questions?
Paul, I have one, just because this has been thrown around here in the Hudson Valley by several people. If I have a restaurant that is doing baking, so I'm already subject to health inspection, and I decide that I would like to mill local grains for my bakery goods that will be sold in the restaurant, is that now 2 separate inspections, one from the Department of Health and one from Ag and Markets, or how would that work?
No, we don't do it that way. The Department of Agriculture and Markets and the Department of Health has a memorandum of understanding that an establishment will be under either jurisdiction, not both. So depending on the type of food service activities that the establishment is going to be doing, they would fall under either one or the other. If you have a restaurant, excuse me, and you are deciding to do some milling, depending if it's at retail or wholesale, then if the percentage is greater at wholesale, then the Department of Agriculture would come in and take over jurisdiction. If it's going to be at retail and you also have your restaurant, then the Department of Health will, continue to have jurisdiction over that establishment.
And I had another question come up here in the chat box. What are the labeling requirements for flour milled on the farm or bakery if sold in retail packages?
Okay. The requirement is that, the ingredients has to be listed in the order of predominance, depending on what's the most predominant stuff that you have in the ingredients. If it's flour, it's just flour, and then, but there's no set label requirement except for having a label that states the product and the ingredients within that product.
There's actually another section about labeling in ag and markets, isn't there?
I'm sorry, repeat that question again.
In the Department of Ag and Markets under food safety, there's like a whole section about food labeling. Is that correct?
Right. I would think so. I'm not sure. But as far as the food labeling aspect of it, if depending on, if you have like a specific question about a certain ingredient, then I could get further clarification on that. But as far as what is needed on the label is the name of the product and the ingredients within that product, and also something I forgot to mention: the weight of the product has to be on the label as well.
I thought there was something about having to state this product contains the certain set of allergens. On our last inspection, that was something that they noted about our labeling that we had to change after that last inspection, because we did not have this product contains wheat, eggs, whatever else is on that list. I don't remember right now.
Right. So that would fall into the declaration of ingredients. That's why I say that the ingredients has to be listed in the on the product. There is certain ingredients that could be allergenic to individuals, so we want all the ingredients to be listed there. Does it have to say allergen? I don't think so. I'm not sure. I could get clarification on that, but once that ingredient is listed, whether or not it says allergen or not, the establishment would be covered because they have declared that ingredient in the product.
That's the assumption that I was under before that inspection, and they stated something different because we have the whole list just like you've been saying, and then they required a secondary line in bold stating this product contains, and then listing off those. But obviously I'll have to double check, because if I don't have to do that, that's less ink on the labels. So.
Right. I could double check for you to see if that specific notation has to be listed like that. I've never, in my years with agriculture market, I was never told that that specific listing has to be on the label separate like that. I was always told that the ingredients in the product has to be declared. All ingredients has to be declared, especially the allergen. The 8 allergens has to be declared if it's in the product.
Very good. So do we have any other comments or suggestions about, especially for comments for us at Cooperative Extension, of how to facilitate the local grain economy, what we can do, or how to attract some more bakers or more farmers or millers?
And we did have another question come up for Paul.
Okay.
Paul, if a small-scale miller uses an existing inspected bakery as a milling location, would the bakery inspection cover the milling operation as well, even though there are 2 individual operators?
No, each operator has to submit for a 20C license, food processing license. And, that particular establishment can have 2 operators there, but not operating at the same time. So, you can have what's called a shared space, and each establishment will get an individual inspection, and then individual license for their company.
Local grain economy, or
one thing I need to state as far as the license too, if an operator decides to change a location, the license is not transferable. You'd have to make another application for the new location that you're going to be transferring your company to. The license is not transferable to from one address to the other. Just to make that known. I'm sorry. You can go on now. Sorry.
Okay. Well, we're actually a bit over time, but if anyone has any comments, we'll take them, and then we'll do just 3 little questions to end our meeting.
And while you guys are filling out this video, just in case they watch it later, I want to thank Catherine Best and Tara Kleinhans for putting the videos together for us.
Yes. Yeah.
And Catherine for doing the voiceover.
Thank you, Delcy. Okay. All right. Thank you for answering those questions. And I guess thank you for sticking this out extra 20 minutes. And if you have any, anything you need, please give Christian or I a call, and we'll help out as best we can. And again, thank you, Paul, for being with us tonight.
Okay, you're
Thank
welcome.
you, everyone.